Welcome, fellow badass. My name is Tanya Wilson, and I am crazy passionate about supporting you. Yes, you! The amazing, ambitious woman who is ready to call her own shots and create a life and business that you truly adore. Our conversations are real, raw, and all about getting shit done while keeping sane. We chat about our wins, losses, business, relationships, family, and how to get the hell out of our own way, believe in ourselves, those really big ideas, and execute. I'm your new hype girl, and I can't wait to see what you create. So come on, let's get inspired and learn something new today. Welcome to the Ladies Kickin' Ass podcast. So today's guest is my kind of lady. She is a former corporate HR leader and, in her own words, recovering type A perfectionist. So I very much have a kindred spirit with today's guest. She's fast paced, she's ambitious, she's focused on all kinds of stuff. If you are in the Gilbert, Arizona area, you have run into this woman somewhere because she's all over the place. She helps her clients to be able to achieve big goals without running into the big old burnout and the complete exhaustion that she has experienced in the past too. So, Allyson, thank you so much for being with us today. And Allyson's coaching practice. Why don't you give us some information about that? It is called Ideally You with Allyson Greek, and I can't wait for you to share with our audience what it is that you love to do with your coaching business.
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks for that amazing introduction. I feel like I just want to go kick some ass today. So I was like, yeah, who is this person? I want to meet her. She's
I want to get
amazing.
to know
Oh, it's
her.
me.
The whole time I'm writing this out this morning and I'm like checking out your stuff, I'm like, yep. You
Yep,
did good,
yep.
very good job with that.
Oh, I love it. Okay, well, now I'm like distracted. What am I doing again? ADHD brain. I'm going to talk about my business for women. So, it's funny. I just love seeing women thrive, and I had struggled I wouldn't say I struggled, but early on in my corporate career and climbing the corporate ladder, I was very ambitious, wanted to go after things, and I found myself struggling with just I won't say balance in the concept. I think some people think of balance because it's not a time concept, but just keeping all the other aspects of my life on track and making sure I was taking care of myself. And then once I got that in order for me, I watched all these other people trying to like achieve goals, burning their teams out because of the way that they were running their teams. And I just saw a lot of people suffering. And so the work that I really do is for us type A achievers who want to kick ass at work, in whether it's, a corporate role or even if we're solopreneurs or growing businesses. But how do we balance that with who we are outside of work? Because I think sometimes what happens to us achievers is we kind of get really overly focused on that version of us, but the person we are outside of work and how we take care of ourselves outside of work impacts how we perform and produce and stay connected to ourselves in the work that we do. And a lot of us achievers want to feel connected to the work that we do too. So there's that concept. And then how we work impacts how we go home and live our lives outside. So I wanted to do a blend of the two. So I know some people are like, so what are you? Are you a business coach? Are you like a life or a health coach? And I'm like, yes.
I do it all.
But not in the same way. Really, it's just helping people really get honed in on who they truly are, operating from their strengths and their values. Because when we stay in integrity with those places, that's where we take action from. So when I know what my values are, and I'm not just talking about like faith, family, freedom. A lot of people will say those things, and those are all great, but it gets a little granular from there. And it's really honing in on that so that if we want to hit the next milestone professionally, we're taking the right actions that aren't going to impact you over here in your life. And people can't see where I'm pointing over here, but we'll stay in the other aspects of your life. And, and if it's, I need to take care of myself over here, we're going to go and work with how do you show up and get the energy you need so you can show up in all the other aspects of your life. So I love that it's not always fits one size fits all, because that's something I think I've never liked, is fitting into a box and feeling like I have to like just be one thing.
Mhm.
And I think that's most women. We're wearing a lot of hats and we can't just put ourselves in one box. So it's kind of melding all of that together. That was a lot of words. That makes
Yes.
sense.
Yes, it made a lot of sense because it's so true. I think for high achieving women, I know this is something I've struggled with, and we've talked about this before together too, that a lot of times you get so caught up because you have that high achiever mentality of like, go, 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 go. And you are constantly measuring yourself. Like, what's the next milestone of hitting? Where am I at? Where am I at? Where am I at?
Yeah.
And it's so simple to get lost in your like who you are as a person in achieving personal goals in your business, because over here we've got metrics and we're measuring all this shit, and then over here I'm like, I still feel like I'm the same. Or if you're a mom, you're like, there's no gauge as to whether I'm doing a good job or not. One day my kid likes me, and the next day not so much, which sometimes I think is because I'm doing a better job now than I was before, you know? Or same thing with your spouse, you know, like, are you checking in with this stuff? How are you measuring things outside in your personal life like you do in your business? So it's
Yeah.
like we're always trying to connect the two of that. So what you do is so beautiful because you're working on the goals they want to achieve professionally and personally, because they do impact each other so
They
much.
do. Yeah. I always tell, one of the things, and it's something that I had to learn in my own life, because I think a lot of times, and society kind of created it, and even like how I think corporate is trying to change. A lot of corporations are realizing, who you are outside of work still shows up when you're at work. You can't tell somebody
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, put everything to the side and now you're at work. No, it just doesn't work that way. And when you walk in the door, which for most of us, that means walking into the next room if they're working from home, you can't just shut off work when you walk in the door at home or walk out of your office into the next room. It just doesn't work that way, because the same you who shows up at your job is the same you who's still showing up in your relationships, in your body, in all the other
Mm-hmm.
aspects of your life. And we're a whole person, yet we like to compartmentalize. And when we do that for too long, I think that's what leads to burnout. And that's what I learned in my life. And I think what's hard is, like you mentioned, with us achievers, we can see where we're achieving certain things in our professional lives, because we've got metrics, or we can see certain things, how what we're achieving there. And so I think it gives us that dopamine hit that wants us to keep going and going and going. And you and I have talked about
Mm-hmm.
ADHD recently. This is not a podcast on that, but realizing that I might be a little ADHD, or maybe a lot. We want those dopamine hits too. And so that's what
Yeah.
also causes us to become like workaholics, because that's what's like fueling that need of, I'm achieving something, but I don't know what I'm achieving over here. So I can put all my effort over here. But when we're not giving this the attention it needs, it's really going to start impacting us in the other areas.
Absolutely. And I think too, when you are super into achieving stuff, when you're not getting shit done and you're just being still with yourself, or you're relaxing, like that's a hard place for me to live at in my mind, because it is an uncomfortable situation for me. Like,
Yeah.
cannot usually, like, my husband will want to watch football on Sundays, you know, he's like, come watch this game with me, and I'm like, it's like three
Mwah.
hours of sitting here. Like, what could I really be getting done in 3 hours? You know, like, he wants to spend time, and that's his time type of thing. And I'm thinking all the things I'm not getting done in this amount of
Yes.
time. So you can see where the burnout and stuff happens. But what would you say to people? Because I often get into conversations with my husband and my kids about this, is they'll say, there, you need to shut the switch off. Like, shut the switch off, you don't have to be working all the time. I love to be working and I love being in that creative space and the things that I do. Like that is my hobby. That is my passion. That is the thing that I like to do is being creative. What do you say to people that are kind of in that mindset of like, well, I like being busy and doing all these things, and I don't feel like I'm ever going to hit this burnout thing. Like it's scarier for me to not be doing than doing.
Yeah. So I feel like there's a few things there. First is I don't know how easy it is to just turn off the switch. It's kind of like when I talked about like people used to think you can walk into the job, turn off the family stuff, that there's things that are going on in your personal life that are weighing on you. You're probably not always, sometimes it could impact the way you show up in your professional life and vice versa. If there's stuff that's going on there, you can't just walk home and like shut it off and not be thinking about this is the stuff that's going on. I do have tactics for what worked for me, but and I'll get to that in a second, but I think it's knowing when to stay there, because I think sometimes from a creative and sorry, I'm getting ADHD brain. One thing I want to say is I think especially for us achievers specifically, we do love the work. We do find value in it. And so we're some of the people that are like, I don't understand how you can just think about work all the time. Well, they're not driven, or they're not as into it. It's just not what drives them like it does us. So we're different. We
Yeah.
can't put ourselves in the same bucket as them. And I think that especially for some of us solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, driven professionals, that is enjoyment for us. Like I love when I have friends that also are driven women and we can like talk about life. And then all of a sudden we're talking about business. I mean, I was literally just meeting with a friend a little bit before I got on this podcast with you, and we were talking about life, and then we moved into business and some things we can collaborate on together. And that brings me joy. That's just how I'm wired. So I think it's okay to accept that part of us and know which relationships will, I guess, cultivate that for us, if that makes
Mm-hmm.
sense. But I
Mm-hmm.
think this is where we need to know, like, this is kind of being connected to who we really are, which sometimes we can get so driven that we forget some of the other pieces. When people talk about well-being, a lot of times they're only talking about physical well-being. And
Yeah.
physical well-being, yes, is a portion. We need the physical energy to do the things that we want. It helps us, and we need the mental, emotional, we need the vocational, well-being. Am I being challenged in the way that I want to in the roles that I'm playing? There's so many different parts of us that make us who we are that we need to cultivate. And so for us as driven women, we can't just shut off some of those ideas. In fact, sometimes when those ideas are coming, I think we need to stay in that flow and allow us to
Mm-hmm.
like take advantage of that time. Because I don't know about you, but when I'm in an idea mode, I need to like keep that faucet running, because I can't just turn it on when I need it to. I can't be like, today I'm going to sit down and I'm going to think of all the ideas I want to, create. It just doesn't work that way.
Then you
So I
won't
have,
have any.
yeah, yeah. So it's like you almost have to monopolize some of that stuff. And I think we just have to know that's how we're driven. And some of the people, like my husband, I have to tell him, oh my gosh, I just had a thought. And then I pull out a thing and like write ideas or whatever it might be. And he has to just
Mm-hmm.
understand that's the way I'm wired. But I also learned us driven women, we think, we'll call it doing nothing. Like if we're not busy, we're being lazy. It's like we're all or
Yeah.
nothing. I'm either busy or I'm lazy. And I see that so often with a lot of the women I work with and I connect with. And I used to be like that. And so what happens is we're constantly doing. So I can't sit down and watch a football game, although that's kind of boring anyway. So I'm with you. I would probably be doing something on the side too. But we need to find these ways of how do I cultivate that connection time for me to be connected to myself, like that downtime. I heard on another podcast, no plans can be a plan.
Ooh. I need
And
to put that in my calendar. No
yeah,
plans.
no plans is a plan. And because what I learned, and I think us driven women is we stay so busy that sometimes it causes us to get disconnected from ourselves. and some
Yeah.
of the other areas that are calling out for attention, whether that be creativity, whether that be the emotional connection that I really need. Because taking care of our well being isn't, again, just isn't just how I'm taking care of myself physically. It could be I'm craving social interaction with people. I've been so focused on this and I need to take a time out and allow myself to be just Allison, which building my business is still part of me, but I need to be just a human Allison, not coach Allison, not speaker Allison, whatever it might be, and connect with
Mhm.
someone on that level. Otherwise, I can start feeling disconnected with myself. And
Yeah.
I think sometimes with women too, I don't know if you've ever felt like if you ever slow down, you get assaulted by your thoughts.
Oh, yes.
Okay. And I think what happens is our thoughts start assaulting us because we don't sit with them enough.
Yeah. That is such a good point because a lot of times, for me, I'm like, if I'm not busy, then I'm thinking too much, and then I don't like being in this headspace of like
Yes.
questioning. Really, it's how it comes to me. Instead of like, if I'm doing, I'm just getting shit done. If I'm sitting, I'm questioning, and then like that, oh, that overwhelms you with like that has just been like a very anxious spot for me to live in, and I think a lot of women are like that.
Yes.
Let me stay busy so I'm not in my head,
Yeah.
I'm
And I think,
actually doing.
yeah, but we need time to be like, there needs to be a balance of both of being, because when we have that time to be alone with our thoughts, whatever that might look like, um,
Mhm.
it lets us know if there's any trends that we're thinking. Sometimes it's the bullshit thoughts we're starting to think about, and maybe we just don't want to deal with them. So we're like, nope, I'm not even going to think about that. But those thoughts are coming up for a reason. It's either, we know, to keep us safe, or it's because there's something underlying that it's trying to get our attention for. It's our body's way, our just deeper way of trying to communicate. It's kind of like our intuition. It's how we cultivate our intuition. And I think us achievers for so long, because we're constantly trying to achieve and do, we shut that off. And so that's sometimes where we're shutting down that part of ourself that we really learn how to communicate. It's not always fun, but you kind of have to
Mhm.
listen to that other part of you to see what's going on. It can kind of let you know when there's alarm bells going off. And like, okay, I didn't realize that for whatever reason I took on that project, but this is talking to me about it in a certain way. Maybe it's because it wants me to do certain things and be more prepared for it or think of ideas. Maybe it's to say, I don't think this is the right thing. Um, you
Right.
can also, yeah, and it can also bring up just other things that are going on deeper within you if you allow yourself to sit with that for a moment, problem solve, all kinds of things. It's a great time to journal,
Yeah.
which I know a lot of achievers don't like to journal either.
Oh, yes. You know what, though? That is like one of the things that I've been trying super hard. Like, I give myself a time in the morning to journal. And I think what I struggled with that is I would sit there and be like, well, what the hell am I supposed to write about?
Yeah.
Like I need
Dear
something
diary.
to do this. Yeah.
Kidding.
Dear diary. To me, journaling was always like just sitting there bitching about how your day went or something,
Yes.
like we get this old like in the time that we grew up was like this is where you tell all your deep dark secrets, like
Yes.
there's such a huge outlet of, even just clearing your mind first thing in the morning. Sometimes we'll wake up as high achievers being like, my to-do list is this friggin' long, and you're automatically like jumping out of bed doing this,
Yes.
but to sit down and organize yourself and even get some of that stuff off of your mind that was bothering you that you may have slept with or woke up with all night long, to be able to put it down on paper and just get it out helps you kind of get your day organized too. So I love the journal.
Yeah.
I'm learning to love the journaling thing. So I think it's a really powerful tool that as achievers, you can get a little bit more organized with yourself and your thoughts and everything that's going on so that you don't come home at the end of the day and be like, oh my God, I'm so busy. But
Yeah. It's
I
funny
think
that
you
you
would
bring
agree.
that up because I wasn't a journaler. Now I'm a big proponent of it. And when I really became more of a journaler, and at the time it was like getting my thoughts out because honestly at this point in time when I first started, my life was a little bit of a mess. I was going through my divorce, and
Hmm.
gosh, what was that? Was that 9 or 10 years ago now? 10 years ago? I can't remember. Um, and, and so it was just my way of just processing some stuff that was going on. And then I just kind of kept that as a process, because then I got to see themes. It also helped me naturally because I'm a natural problem solver. But if I can figure out what the problem is, I can reverse engineer it if I'm honest with myself. And I think that's the problem, is
Hmm.
sometimes we don't give ourselves enough time to get honest enough about what it is that's really there. And I think I had that fear of, what the journaling or diary process was before. Like, I'm going to write this and somebody's going to read this, and,
Yeah.
it's all these weird things. But eventually I had to just get out of it and just write anything as messy as it was, even if it just didn't make sense. And eventually sometimes it was a lot of writing, but I also kept the process into my professional days, and now I use it as a way because I would go to bed and all the thoughts of the things that had gone on for the day, or the ideas I had, or the things I was thinking about that I needed to do the next day, were like, I couldn't just shut my brain off when I would go to sleep. And so journaling was a way for me to get out any of those thoughts, even if it was like, this is what I need to do tomorrow, just to get that out of my brain. My brain just needed to dump, even if it looked
Yeah.
like a to-do list. And so now that's kind of the way I journal. I journal a lot of different ways, but something I tell my clients, especially my achievers, is at the end of the day, if it's sometimes hard for you to go to sleep, here's a few things you can do at the very end of the day to try to turn it off. And it's journal about things that went well that day, or that you're grateful for that day. So just some top things. It could even be, I saw my friend at the coffee shop and I said hi. It doesn't matter how big or small, because sometimes us achievers think it has to be something huge. Then it goes
Yeah.
into, what are the things that I'm still wanting to bring into my life? Because there's always those things, like maybe it's, I've got a meeting tomorrow and I want it to go really well, and
Hmm.
so I'm a person of faith, so I might write mine out as like a prayer. Someone else just might put it out as like they're asking it to the universe, or whatever it might be, but they're just
Sure.
putting it out. So I think we need to be intentional on, what is it that I want more of in my life? If we don't put it out there, how do I bring it in? And then I
Yeah.
go to I'm thinking about what my to-do list is. So my next is, what are my top priorities for tomorrow? Which sounds
Yeah.
weird, writing about it when I'm in bed, but I'm a type A recovering. So I'm already thinking about that. And it kind of reminds me of, these are your top priorities. So I know what I'm focused on, even though it's already in my planner. I already know, but it's me reminding myself that. And then the last thing I do is, what am I looking forward to? And then that way I
Oh,
always
that's
think,
a good one.
and then I feel like it's kind of complete unless there's anything else I want to continue to write about. So those are just easy things for people that don't know what to do, but maybe they go to bed and feel like their thoughts are like, I'm thinking of all the things that I need to do. It's a good way to just get that out, but end it on a good
Thank
note.
Yes, thank you for sharing all of those because it is huge. And a large portion of the audience that listens to this podcast are people that are entrepreneurs. They have a business, they're wearing 17,000 hats, so they
Right.
are everything. So, like, I find myself sometimes having like, okay, so for my installation side of the business, this is my to-do list. It's this big. And then on the marketing side of stuff, my to-do list is this big and then this
Yep.
big. And you're like, holy shit, there's only so much time in the day to get these things
Right.
done. Which day are you focusing on these specific tasks so you don't feel like you're a scatterbrain all day long? I
Yeah.
have dedicated one day that I work with the installs business and what are our top three things that we want to accomplish today. And you really dedicate that time to doing those things because I feel like sometimes too, even though we get it out and we journal these things, we've now built a to-do list that a superhuman cannot accomplish. So you're feeling like you're still
Right.
not
Yeah.
getting things accomplished. What would be kind of your biggest piece of advice for someone that is consistently doing that to themselves? Like you're truly setting yourself up to fail with this massive to-do list of things. What do you think are some of the most helpful tips to help people
Oh, yeah.
Stop doing that or get through it.
Yeah, and it's funny because I used to do this with my teams, even in my corporate days and being a leader, because I led teams and then would do other things on my own and then have my own projects and my own work outside of that. So I had to get into
Mhm.
that. But then when you're an entrepreneur, yeah, you wear so many different hats. I kind of look at it as, have you ever heard the phrase of like your eyes are bigger than your stomach? It's like you go in somewhere and
Yes.
you're like, oh my God, that looks so good. And you order all this food and then you're like, crap, I am so stuffed. Like that was not fun, or I can't eat it all. And now I feel like I
Good
wasted all this stuff.
analogy.
It's kind of like we do that with the tasks, right? We're so advantageous and so ambitious that, and I do this with my time, like in my day, my husband's like, you literally will like try to see how much you can fit in sometimes. Like I used to be like the person on my days off, like, okay, we need to do this. And then right after we go there to be efficient, we need to stop here and do this errand and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, oh my God, I can't. And I'm like, I can get it all done. What are you talking about? Um,
They're like, when are we gonna eat? You're like, we don't have time to eat. Grab a
yeah.
board. Come on.
Yeah, bring your snacks. Chop chop. I try not to be like that anymore, but sometimes it creeps up, I'm not gonna lie. But I think it's, again, it goes to prioritization, which I know that gets really more focused. So again, when you think about your values, and I know like what's important to me and where am I trying to head, so you're aligning your goals and your values together. I'm going to look at what are my top things. Obviously, for us, if we're business owners, income generating activities are always going to be like, that's, taking care of your clients, and the income things are going to probably be the top. But we know the admin and some of those other things, whether it's marketing, I'm going to just talk to this piece, they need to get done. Otherwise, we're not going to continue to cultivate that, or we're going to have a lot more work that we're not going to be able to do if we're not doing the admin stuff, right? Like it's all the
Mhm.
stuff that isn't the fun, sexy stuff that nobody gets to see, but it needs to get done.
Sure.
So for me, and I started doing this several years ago outside of my regular meetings. I am one of those. So I talked about what I do at the end of the day. At the end of my work day, so I plan my week out in advance. So I am always looking at my week, usually like on a Sunday, and
Hmm.
I'm looking at the week ahead, you know.
Yes.
And so this is where I already have my meetings, whether it's client meetings, other things that are ongoing. And I know, okay, these are the things where I need to be. These are my projects that I'm trying to work on, or I'm trying to, maybe trying to cultivate this relationship or whatever it might look like. Where can I fit that in? But I need to leave myself some white space, because again, knowing about myself that I will literally put things back to back. And I had to learn this in my corporate days. Like you got to give yourself the buffer space. Otherwise I'm not really ready to go. And I also have
Yeah.
to remember my energetics of sometimes switching from one mode to another mode isn't actually going to work for me. So that's kind of knowing just yourself. So when I
Yeah.
only set usually three top priorities for the day. I might add in a few extra ones. And if I get to them, it's like, yes, that was a rock solid, amazing day. But what are the top three things that if I get them done, especially what's the most important that I need to absolutely do? And I'm not going to shut it down until that one thing is done, because I don't want to continue to add it to the next day. What's that most important thing? Here's my three top priorities. And then here's the other things, because I'm only one person. I can only do so much. And I started that back in my corporate days. And
Yeah.
that's what I would focus on. And I was actually more productive without working more hours, and it felt better. Yeah, maybe I
Yeah.
didn't get the dopamine hit of like checking all these things off, but at least I gave myself the space and felt like I was actually focusing on the most important tasks. I hope I answered your question. Like,
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that really falls into my next question of, the productivity is like such a buzzword too, like efficiency and productivity and all
and we
of
love it. Yeah.
everything put together, which makes my organizational soul happy and in the same spot. You're kind of like, are we getting it all done?
Anxiety.
What would be
Yeah.
one of your favorite productivity hacks that you would share for entrepreneurial women?
Oh my gosh, just one. I think it was what I was just sharing, is one of the biggest things that I started doing in my corporate days when I was leading teams that were all throughout the country. Um, and some of the big things that I was involved with was knowing what I had in advance. So I started the week planning out my week, and I did not end. The last thing I did at the very end of the day was plan for my next day. So I felt like I didn't like the feeling of shit, what am I going to come into tomorrow? Like that
Yeah.
whenever I log onto my
Yep.
computer, because I had teams and, that were remote all over. So what are they going to need? Not that that couldn't still happen, but I felt like I already had my priorities. But if I needed to juggle them because shit hit the fan, or, you know, I had to put out fire drills and I needed to juggle things, I had the ability to do that and knew it wasn't going to completely sideline me. So I kind of knew that, but I also knew, okay, we can still focus on that top priority. I never, but I felt like always looking, planning, and setting up my day the following day, the night before. And that was even for things like, if I'm going to work out in the morning, I already had my clothes set out the night before. So it was one less decision I needed to make at the beginning of the day.
Yep.
I don't want to start my day having to decide what I need to do. Reduce, I think even Steve Jobs, like he wore the same outfit all the time because it reduced the amount of decisions he needed to make. I know I was making so many decisions day in, day out. I needed to lessen the amount of decisions I needed to show up and make at that point in time.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of already knew where I was going into. So those, I think it was like planning for the next day the night before is one of my biggest ones. And then that buffer space. I know that sounds crazy, but I would literally I would always think to myself, under promise, over deliver. Don't over promise, under deliver. And I think sometimes us achievers do the opposite. Like we think we can do so much. And so we
Mm-hmm.
put so much on our plate to either it's going to run us ragged, and now I am feeling like crap myself and I just couldn't operate that way anymore. And so I looked at they're going to get the best of me if I really look at that. So maybe they want to be on my calendar tomorrow. And if it's important enough, I might need to rearrange things, but that's where I get to decide, what's truly an emergency or not. But I am giving myself the space to work through whatever it is that I'm helping my team out, myself out, my projects. And they may need to wait 2 more days, but they're going to get the best of me and we're going to get shit done a lot faster than if you got me that day and then you had to wait for me to like find the
Sure.
space to work through whatever it was. So I think that's, again,
Yes.
I think planning for me goes not just in the week, but the night before has always been my hack. So if I was working in the office, it was making my lunches and everything the night before, having all that ready, everything that I could do to just grab stuff and get out the door, to get to my
Yeah.
desk and look and go, this is what I've got and I'm ready to go.
Yes. Preparation is key to everything, I think, from, not hitting that you feel like I'm going to get so much stuff done. And then I love what I just want to stop for a minute and kind of focus on what you were saying with like over promising and under delivering. This is something I have struggled with my entire life, because if you're also the way that we are also people pleasers, and you want to get all of
Mhm.
this, get all the shit done and not let anybody down, and make sure you're being a rock star 24 hours a day. So you say, I'll do it. I'll get it done. I'll have it done by tomorrow. And then I find myself at 3 o'clock in the morning sitting at my desk still trying to
Yeah.
work on things to make sure that everything is done before tomorrow. And then
Yeah.
when you get done with it, you're like, well, that looks like shit because I was up at 3 o'clock in the morning working on this stuff. So
Yeah.
that is something that I know a lot of women in this industry struggle with, because they're trying to wear all the
Yeah.
hats. They're the internal office people, or they're out in the field and they're in charge of all of these things. How would you encourage them to ask for help so that they're not trying to take on all of those things?
Yeah. A couple things, because I even want to go back and it's the buffer time too, I want to talk about, and then I want to get to the help piece because I think sometimes, in fact, I'm thinking of a specific client I was working with for, and her story is like a lot of us. In fact, I'm like, this used to be me, but she felt like the own projects and ways she could do, the things she wanted to do to grow her business. She didn't ever get that time because again, emergencies were always happening. Her clients were reaching out. She felt like she needed to drop things to go find answers for them right away, or she wanted to answer their, their questions in the moment, or felt crippled, like almost paralyzed if she didn't have all the answers right then and there. She felt like she needed to give them all the options as soon as they were on the phone. And so we started talking about, why do you have to have all the answers right then and there? And why do you have to answer their questions right away? Like, we
Yeah.
don't expect everybody to do that for us. And so what could you do realistically to get back to them in a timely manner, but in a way where you're not now scrapping the rest of your day because you had this one client reach out to you and ask you this question, and now you feel like you got nothing else done because you were running around trying to get this one thing done. And so
Yeah.
I think it's that, take a deep breath, slow down in those moments and go. And I mean, I know you're in the septic business. And so sometimes
Mhm.
it is a little bit of an emergency if there's like a backup or something. But in some situations, a lot of us aren't, even firemen and first responders get time off. They're not working 24/7 all the time. I mean, some of them, that is their role, but they will have their days off. And so
Yeah.
we're not first responders. We may feel like that, and they can wait a little bit, is what I used to have to tell myself. Like, nobody's dying. And even if they
Yeah.
were, I am not the person to life save them right now. I'm
Yeah.
not the surgeon, I'm not the doctor, I'm not, whoever is the true emergency response team to take care of them. I think when I started recognizing that about myself and realizing I can wait and they will get much better answers. Like, and I remember us doing that with this one client. This was just recently. And she was like, oh my God, I used to think I needed to have all the answers. I could say, hey,
Hmm.
you know what? I'm going to look at a couple options for you. Let me get back to you by either end of day or by tomorrow end of day. Are you good with that? And then we can talk through options. Yeah, you answer their question. They know they're going to be helped. They know the timeline. You gave yourself the space you need. So I think, again, it's knowing your limitations. And second of all, once you know your limitations, you know when to ask for help. But when you don't know what your limitations or your boundaries are, you don't know when and where to raise your hand. So I think that's
Sure.
kind of like where it starts. And I think it happens at different points of when you need help, because I think, kind of, I know I'm not like fully answering the question quite yet. I think what happens to some of us achievers, especially if we work, whether we work for ourselves or work for other people, we're worried that that moment that we raise our hand, now you're going to think I can't handle things in the future. I think there's that stigma for
Yes.
some of us women, that we're worried that you're not going to think I can handle things in the future. And
Mm.
that's not what it means. What it means, and we have to like change that stigma, both in how we may think about it from when others raise their right, the white flag, and ourselves, is no, we just hit our limit in that particular moment. We all have a limit. And we have
Yeah.
to, again, know and recognize when we're at that, and just know then, okay, what is it that I truly have capacity for? And so I think that's knowing then, okay, if I look at all of these things that I have on my plate, where is it that I need somebody to step in with me at? Or is it, I know we've talked about, even from a coaching perspective, like, how do I recognize maybe even where I need it or not, or how can I blend it better so I'm handling these things in a better way? Whatever it might be, if you're not sure on where you need the help, then you need somebody who can sit down and go, these are all the things that I've got going on. I'm struggling with keeping up with it. What would you say? Or, like, how do we juggle it? That's what I used to do with my teams. Let's look at what you got, and I'll know how to like help you. But otherwise, it needs to be, what are your most pressing things? What do you absolutely need to do? What's really not that important, but you're just like, and then that's, and that comes with time when we know.
Mhm.
So I know, and I'm not like specifically saying it, but I think it just takes time to cultivate what's pressing and what's not, because when we're in that point, we think everything's important. We think everything's an emergency. We
Sure.
think everything needs to be responded to right away. And when you don't give yourself a true timeout to look at it and go, okay, really, what is? And maybe that's where I need to raise my flag and go, I need somebody else who has a neutral perspective that can help me determine what's priority and not, so that I can like come up for air a little bit.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Coming up for air is a good thing to do, or else you do hit that burnout spot in there. Um, Another thing that I find very interesting, and we've had conversations about this too, and what I love so much about chatting with you and getting to know you is, do you find, I think lot of women, just turning to a more personal side of things here, find that as they start an entrepreneurial journey or they're really invested in a business as like, yeah, co-owner or something like that, that their friendships and the relationships that they have they change, they evolve. These people that you used to just go, used to be your shopping buddies or your happy hour friends or something like this, you have now kind of, you've got other responsibilities and your business is taking on a whole new look. And do you find that your friendships that you have with your women friends have evolved into more friendships that are business related, that you're kind of learning to commingle those two things together?
Yeah, I love this question. And I also, let's just get real and to the point. Do you find that some of your friends change or even drop off, or you don't even feel like you have the same connection with them once you go on that journey? Yes, yes, and yes.
Absolutely.
Um, I was like, I'll just say what maybe some people might be thinking, and it's hard.
Mm,
And here's why I think it happens, because in any change journey, it doesn't matter whether it's you're pursuing something professionally. Let's say you're going through a weight loss journey and you're changing parts about you and the things that you do. You're changing part of your identity now. And it's
yeah.
already something that you're trying to come to terms with because you're becoming somebody that you haven't been before. And even as we go to different stages in our businesses, we do this too. But it's
Hmm.
you're becoming somebody you haven't been before. So you're having to do and act in ways that you haven't. And it's confusing to some of the people that maybe have been in your life before. I've unfortunately have lost friends, in my journey as I decided to go out on my own and create my coaching business. And I've learned that some relationships I don't connect to the same way that I do. And then I find that the relationships I really do connect with are, yes, those women who can understand my journey. Like I
Yeah.
was bringing up, and even why you and I connect is we can talk personal, but we can also like go to the professional or the business side, because that's still a part of who we are. And when we feel like we've been in relationships before that can't understand this part of us, it almost feels
Hmm.
like you're cutting off a part of you. And so you feel like you can't show up as who you really are because they don't
Yeah.
understand that part of you. And so yeah, you will see your relationship shift, and it's hard. And I think that actually can keep people stuck from growing to where they want in their business, because they want to hold on to those relationships and they don't want to disappoint those people or upset them. So they try to stay the same. And the thing is all relationships sometimes have seasons. You might be
Yes.
in a different season of life. And if you're going to disappoint them because you've got to focus on these new things and your time and energy goes to a lot of building the business, and we know a lot of time and energy goes towards that, and you can't help that you want to talk about your business all the time like it's your freaking baby. um,
Yeah.
it's hard when you don't have that support. And if you're trying to make something big in your life, you're going to have to realize that maybe some of those people can't come along with you, and you're going to have to find a new community of people that do understand, are on the same journey, can support you, or have been there. And I think that's what's really helped me along the way. I know I went a lot of places, but I hope.
No, I love it. I love it.
I'm
I
like,
heard
ah,
that on I heard that on another podcast too. They were talking about how, it was just kind of a season where my business is so important to me and my family is so important to me. And I don't really have a lot of time to just be like, oh, girl time, I'm going to go hang out with all my girlfriends and not kind of commingle some of them together. So they were talking about like the adjustment of that and how it is almost a taboo thing for women to be able to say, like, I've kind of outgrown this group of friends, or I can't authentically show up as this person I'm becoming with my old high school buddies, that are still my friends and I love them dearly, but we don't have a lot of life in common. So
Yeah.
it's very interesting. And I think, thank you for talking about that and just being real with it, because I think more women need to be able to say, we don't want to hurt people's feelings and we don't want to, we're
We
always
don't do it
very like,
intentionally. Yeah.
in tune of like, well, if I don't do this or this, and we often find ourselves doing shit that we don't necessarily want to do, or places that we want to be in, or even relationships for that matter, but we don't want to hurt somebody's feelings by not being in there. I think really being okay with showing up as your new evolving authentic self, you attract a new set of people that will become a new group of girlfriends for you, which is something
Yes.
for so long I kind of kept in that shell of like, well, this is my specific group of friends and these are just my friends. And most of them don't even live where I live at now, but you hang
Yeah.
on to it for so long. And when you actually put yourself out there and you're around other women that are doing the things that you want to do, you start attracting, you have this different vibes with people, and the authentic deep
Yes.
root of you that may have started those old friendships, you will find them in other people, just like
Yeah.
you and I met at a networking event, and
Yep.
my stuff is always like something funny about shit or something. And you went right before me and said shit. And I was like, I like her. I
There
like
she
her.
is.
And I know that that was a mutual thing that came back and forth between both of us, because we're pretty small town girls and we've lived some similar life experiences. And you don't even know anything about that if it's just, if you keep it at a very professional level with things too. So I
Yeah.
love that you're able to have that conversation and be really real about that it's going to evolve, and all these relationships evolve, and I think that sometimes we limit our own potential by trying to keep people around us happy.
Yeah. And you know what? It shows up in so many different aspects of our life. Like definitely in business, of course, we're seeing that seasonally, but some things that may even resonate for other people, or maybe they might be on a journey like this. But I remember when I was going through my physical health journey, transformation journey, and losing weight, and even getting into the running community. So I had lost quite a bit of weight. So I had to change things about my lifestyle. And then I found myself really getting into running. I don't run now, so that community has definitely changed. But in order for me to stay as that person, so again, I was moving into a new identity of me that I wanted to be. I wanted to be this fit person. I wanted to be this healthy person. Physically, because health is more than just physical. I always want people to know that, because it really irritates me when just people look at people and go, oh, they must be healthy. They could look really fit and be the unhealthiest people, mentally, emotionally, maybe even
Yes.
physically. So I just want to call
Yes.
that out. So I'm not saying that physical, but for me, it was a physical and an emotional and mental journey. But I was getting into running. And so if I wanted to get into doing endurance running, I needed to surround myself with others. So you know what I did? I joined a running group. And then I now identified myself as a runner, and I found myself wanting to hang out more with my running friends. It was, maybe we would grab breakfast and something after, a long run, or on Saturday mornings, that's what we were doing. And we were connecting that way. And now those were the people that I was attracting. So I want people to know that this can show up in any aspect. And now it was less me hanging out with my prior friends that I just went out late on Friday nights and drank did the drinking and stuff with, because I knew I had to get
Yeah.
up early on Saturday morning, and I had my accountability group that I'm going to run early in the morning with them. And so it caused me to start shifting differently, which meant I maybe not spending as much time with this group of people over here. And again, that's definitely what happens as far as entrepreneurial and all of it. So I wanted to share that, because like sometimes people think,
Yeah.
well, I don't understand, if you're still the same person, you're just changing what you do. If I change my job, I'm not, I wouldn't not to do those things with you. But it's so different. People who have not built their own businesses, regardless of how big or small, do not know how much mentally and emotionally we take on just to try to
Mhm.
get things off the ground. The ideas, the things that we need to cultivate with. You're like we talked about, you're wearing so many different hats that when you work for an organization, you usually play one role. You might do different tasks within that role. But when you are in a business and you're a business owner or you're creating something, you're doing it all, and it takes a lot of
Yep.
mental energy that people just don't understand, and it's hard to explain unless you're talking to someone who has sat in your shoes.
Oh, absolutely. And I tell people that all the time. Like I always, the analogy is like you can tell people what they should be doing with their kids and how to raise their kids, and then you have kids, and then you understand how much those people had no idea what they were talking about or didn't understand,
Yeah,
that it's very, it's something that from an outside perspective, even if you have a partner that has not started their own business and they haven't bootstrapped it from the beginning of stuff, like there may be some inadequacies of compatibility and conversation with that, because I know that was something that I struggled with in my marriage too. At the beginning was like I was business, 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 business. And it was like, well, when are you gonna shut this off? Or when are you gonna, like, do you ever just turn this off? Like you gotta like, is that all you
yeah.
do is
I go to
work?
work and I
And
shut it off, and you're like, "But it's not the
I'm like,
same."
I don't want to shut it off. I like it. Okay. This is what I
Yeah,
do. This is who I am. This is my hobby.
yeah,
you know
yep.
there can be some little inadequacies in conversation with stuff like that. How would you encourage people if they're struggling with something like that, even in like their intimate relationships, how to kind of maneuver through that without it causing serious rift between people?
I think that's also why it's important to have a community of people that are on the same journey and understand, because we can't, expect our partners and our spouses to fulfill every need of us. That's why I say we're a whole person. We have all these different parts. And, there's a lot of people, whether it's in friendships or their relationships, they expect that person to like fill everything. And you know what? That's just bullshit.
Yeah.
That person will
Yeah.
never, and I can't expect him to fulfill all my needs, nor am I going to even think I can remotely fill all of his. And from like a he's going to have conversations with his guy friends that I'm not going to be able to have with him. And he has his networking friends. He works in the commercial construction industry. And so he has got guys in the industry that he works with that they meet for cigars, whiskeys, and that kind of stuff. And I'm like, go for it, because I can give you some conversation about it, but I'm going to think about it from a different lens than you are. Like, I'm going to start giving you
Yeah.
leadership coaching and tell you what you should do with your team. And I think sometimes he's like, no, I don't need that. And so he needs to
They
have
love
that.
to be coached by us. Don't you know that?
Yeah, yeah. No, I don't think so all the time. I'm like, do you want my advice or the wife answer right now? Because I don't know if I can give you the coach side of me is coming out. Um,
Yeah.
or even the prior HR leader in me will come out in certain things. But I think that's the biggest thing, is knowing that, so that if we have that outlet and we're getting it, we know we can go to them, and it's still an extension of us. We're still not going to be able to completely shut off talking about our business from time to time. It's part of who we are. And if
Yeah.
anybody thinks and cut that, sorry, did I cut out?
Yeah.
And cut that part off of us, it's like expecting us to walk in and like cut our arm off and only like my torso is going to come in. Like, it's just not
Yeah.
what we can do. It's just if we've got the outlet where we're getting that filled a little bit more, we don't have to do it as much with them.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. And I think that it's just at the beginning what you said with that. Like they're not going to be your everything that you need. And that I think that's what the expectation is with a lot of people, so they feel let down when they're not that person. If your other half isn't in business, then find a business crew that you talk about business stuff with.
Yeah.
Obviously you're still going to talk about it at some point, but they're not going to understand the pain points or things that you may be struggling and stressing about if it's not something that they have to do in their work journey every single day. So I have definitely very much learned to do that
Yeah.
as well. Like, plus that can bring all kinds of extra interesting conversations you don't want to have.
Yeah. It'd be like trying to talk to them about girly gynecological, gynecal,
Yeah.
whatever. I can't even say the word right now with our husbands and have them understand, and they will never understand that. And so you're going to talk
Yes,
to a gynecologist, or another woman might understand some of the issues that you're going on.
sure.
I'm in my early
Yeah.
40s now, so I'm hitting perimenopause. I can talk about perimenopause with my husband, but he doesn't understand. But if I talk to another woman who's like, oh my God, I totally get it,
Yeah.
it's the same thing. So,
Yep. Very much so. Well, thank you so much. Today has been so much fun having conversations with you. I love chatting with you always.
oh,
Why and don't you share with us good places where everyone can find you, stuff that you may have going on. And then we'll of course link everything in the show notes here so it makes it nice and easy for everybody to find you. But what do you have going on?
yeah. So actually, in the next couple of weeks, I am going to be offering free coaching intro calls. So if you're a woman who wants to really get shit done in your business without burning yourself out and losing the personal parts of you. So operating from your values, but you're not sure quite how to do that. I would love to chat with you. So I'll be offering some free intro sessions there, and you can sign up and take advantage of one of those. And you can find me on Instagram. It's Allyson Greek, Allyson Greek, like I'm from Greece. Or you can go to my website, AllysonGreek.com.
Excellent. And follow her Instagram because so many of the little tidbits that you come up with are like, oh, I needed that today. So keep doing those. So they're
Yeah.
very effective for many of us.
Yeah.
Sometimes
And a
it's
lot of
that one
times,
little something you just needed to hear today.
yeah. And even if, you're like, okay, I want to follow you, but I don't want to join, I don't want to sign up for a call. I just want to know what you're more about. Go on to my Instagram and sign up to get on my weekly newsletter, because I'll send things that I don't always put on my Instagram. So those go directly, or if I'm ever offering any opportunities or free guides that they get to take advantage of, they get to take advantage of all of that. So they can do that directly in the link in my bio on Instagram.
Excellent. Excellent. So one last question in closing that I always ask everybody
Ooh.
on the podcast. So Ladies Kicking Ass is all about building a community of unique kick-ass women who are intentionally helping other women to get to their bigger goals. So in your words, what does the phrase Ladies Kicking Ass mean to you?
Uh, I could say so many things, but I think the first things that come to me are women who are living their own definition of success. They're not having others tell them what they need to do, who they need to be, and they're really just owning who they are and going out and making it happen. They're really clear on, this is what I want. I don't need permission to ask for it. I'm able to go and make it happen on my own. And once you know that and you know your why, you figure out the how. And that's really, I feel like women who are kicking ass just make things happen. And it's because they're really grounded in who they are.
Couldn't agree with you more. I love that. Thank you so much, Allyson. You're
Oh,
always a pleasure to talk to, and it's so much fun to know you. So thank you for everything that you do for everyone.
oh, thanks, lady. I appreciate you too.
Thank you for listening. Today's message was pure inspirational fire. I loved it so much. Hey, if you got a lot out of today's show and you think a friend of yours may love it too, please do me a quick favor. Screenshot the episode, post it, tag us at Ladies Kickin' Ass, or share the link to the episode. I'm here to help and support as many badasses as possible, and your generosity in sharing the show to your audience means the world to me. Don't forget to hit subscribe to be notified of all newly released episodes, because they're that good. And leaving the show a 5-star review is the ultimate expression of love. If you're interested in becoming a guest on the podcast, I'd love to hear from you. Shoot me a DM on Instagram or Facebook and we can chat further. There's also a link to connect in the show notes. Thank you for being part of our tribe. Now go kick some ass, lady.